Hello there, ICS3U folks. We're almost finishing up our software development life cycle unit here. We're talking about testing, and we've done some testing, of course. We're always testing our own code, and when we finished our code, we had that self and peer evaluation thing. But this is a little bit different. This is a little more formal. Um, and I'm just going to talk about the exercises a little bit. You did some research, and one of the things that you came across was white box testing and black box testing. So this is a sheet of paper that we're going to fill out, and I just want to explain this. Um, the idea is uh, after you finish your program, you sort of do some formal testing of your own code. And this is a little bit strange because um, there's lots of different variables and variables change. So how we're doing this is you're going to pick a certain variable and you decide whether it's an integer, a real, or string, a maximum value or minimum value, whatever this thing is. And you might not know. Minimum might be null for a string, and maximum value doesn't really make much sense at all. But fill this out as best as you can. And then there's the test case. So a typical input at boundary and outside boundary, what you're expecting and what actually happens when you run it. And this is testing certain parts of our code. And there is an example there where this is from the music database one, where the array has 100 elements and the minimum value would be 0. And here's some test cases. If the typical input would be 5, what happens? What happens? At boundary might be 0, or you might have some sort of boundary where you set up the most CDs that you could have in your database would be 100, whatever the maximum would be. Uh, you know, does your program handle those ones that are outside the boundary or not? And notice this gives you a chance to try and reflect on bad user input before you actually handed it in. And I know you've handed these problems in, but we're thinking about going forward. Um, you're not going to have a table for every single one of your variables necessarily, but I do want you to copy and paste, say, 3 of these um, and fill them out for your code. And this is you testing your own code and reflecting on your own code. Um, After, you're going to do black box testing, which is reflecting on someone else's program. And this is a little more formal than the self-evaluation we did earlier. Uh, but this is going to be testing somebody else's program. You're not going to look at the code. You're just going to use the program. The idea of, was the program clear to use, and that sort of thing. And again, this helps improve the overall product. You do a little testing and then a little bit of improvement, a little bit more coding, a little more testing, a little bit more coding. One thing I want to mention about this is, of course, in our programs, we can't possibly test all output because they're too big. There's too much user entry. I want to show you something. This is the the computer science course that I'm taking right now, and you don't have to worry about the language itself. And hopefully, you can read this okay. Don't worry about the language itself. This is a programming language called Racket. But what's interesting about Racket is built into the program itself is a formal way to test, and that's what we want to do is sort of think formally of how do I test my program to make sure it works. So this program, even though you're not going to be able to read it, it doesn't matter. All it does, it takes 3 inputs and then finds the middle number. That's what this program does. But built in are test cases. Each one of these lines of code here is a test case called a check expect in Racket. Again, you don't have to worry about it. But the idea is, if I have these 3, I should expect 4 as the output. If I had these 3 inputs, I should expect 2 as the output, and built right in are the test cases. And this is the sort of thing that we want to formally do. This is what I would expect for this input, what I would expect for the output. For this input, this is what I would expect the output, and then you actually run the program to figure out what it does. Certainly, we can't be as formal as this language because there's so many possibilities. This program is teeny weeny compared to the ones that we're doing. But this is the idea of formal testing. We think we're done our program, and now let's formally reflect on whether it works or not. Okay? And that's the idea of this. So today we're going to fill out this table for, yes, programs in the past. I realize that it would have been nice to maybe do this form of reflection before your programs were marked. But this is going to move us forward towards our final projects and towards our projects for our last programming unit. And it's practice for the SDLC. Okay, so white box testing and then black box testing. Someone's going to test your program and you're going to test somebody else's program. The exercises are to produce 3 pieces of paper. Not paper, files. Don't need to print it off. Okay, I'm going to stop talking now.